I assume that media education is as important to formal education as literacy is important to formal education, and I expect that it can be addressed across disciplines. The problem is that we must have some consensus about the aims and purposes of the educational system, and in particular the free public educational system in each culture. And once we have some consensus about the purposes of that, then we can design the learning environment in a different way that assumes that we will address media literacy education or digital literacy and information literacy across the Well, certainly literacy or media education does not only pertain to children and school people in universities. Certainly it's a lifelong learning path. And I really think it's important to go back and look at the history of literacy, and it's important for social capital. And the other thing that's important to remember is that if you are a literate person, even if you think critically, it does not mean that you have more opportunity in life. It does not mean it at all. However, if you do not have the ability to think critically and to have a lot of literacy skills, the door is shut in your face. So it's just a threshold, we call it in English. It's just a threshold. It's the first step, and after that, you have the ability to open opportunities for social capital and for workforce development and for other things. But without it, the door slams in your face. So you can't expect too much, but you can expect that throughout your life, not only do you have to be literate, you have to be literate in multiple ways. And without that, you do not have opportunities. It's a good idea to have some flexible policies in this period of extreme disruption and change, because rigid policies are intended to create areas of power and influence, but they can also stop experimentation and innovation. So you must have flexible boundaries for the policies to change as communication practices change. And so the reason I say that I think it is too early is that what I really mean is that it has to be flexible. The policies have to be flexible, and I assume you mean for integration into a formal education system. So we see the best practices for the learning environment. Forget about if it's offline or online or formal or informal, forget that. The best practices, and then to see what kind of partnerships. So my advice for policy is that if it comes from a national or international perspective, it's useful if it's flexible, but I advise people to think global but go local.